Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is The List of Suspicious Things by Jennie Godfrey. This was a book club read for me, so my book club here chose this one. It is a debut novel by Jennie Godfrey, and it is a surprisingly super easy read, though it did make me cry twice. If you're new here, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. As always with my book reviews, I'll read you guys the blurb first. Yorkshire, 1979. Maggie Thatcher is Prime Minister, drainpipe jeans are in, and Miv is convinced that her dad wants to move their family down south because of the murders. Leaving Yorkshire and her best friend Sharon simply isn't an option, no matter the dangers lurking round their way or the strangeness at home that started the day Miv's mum stopped talking. Perhaps if she could solve the case of the disappearing women, they could stay after all. So Miv and Sharon decide to make a list of all the suspicious people and things down their street. People they know, people they don't. But their search for the truth reveals more secrets in their neighbourhood, within their families and between each other than they ever thought possible. What if the real mystery Miv needs to solve is the one that lies much closer to home? So it's a story of two best friends, young children turning into teenagers in the time of the Yorkshire Ripper. Now, if you're not from the UK, in the 70s, the Yorkshire Ripper was a man who was murdering women. He began with prostitutes and then it was just anyone. He generally attacked at night, and it changed the country. Even now, I feel there's still things we do or don't do because of these incidents. Now, it took a long time for them to catch the Yorkshire Ripper. It was many, many years people had to live with this man killing random women, and it got to the point where women were given buses home from work, women weren't allowed out at night, all of these things because, you know, victim blame, don't catch the murderer. So, huge problem, and that's when this book is based. But what this book actually focuses on is the community around Miv, and as I said at the start of this video, it made me cry twice. It's written very well, very beautifully. It's not one I currently feel I would read again, nor is it one I would thrust to people. However, I did enjoy it, and it is one I do want certain people to read. But let's go into my quotes for this book and then we'll go into my overall review. I'm going to try to do this spoiler free, so if you haven't read this, hopefully I don't give too much away, but let's get into the quotes. Page 30. In the end, though, I made a wish that would ripple through the lives of everyone I knew. A wish I would come to regret deeply. As I threw my penny into the well, I wished that I would be the person to catch the Yorkshire Ripper. For me, that quote should be in the blurb. It perfectly depicts what our protagonist Miv is trying to do. It's also really powerful foreshadowing for the book itself. Page 71. We were just about to leave when Mr. Bashir's head appeared around the shop door. He was holding out a full carrier bag, one of the shop's candy-striped ones, which he waved in Jack's direction. Food, he said, beaming. This literally made me cry. Mr. Bashir owns the corner shop where Miv is from, and it's not a very representative community at that time. Most people are white and his family are not. And he's the most lovely man in this book. I absolutely adore Mr. Bashir and his son Ishtak. They are lovely, and they really reminded me of growing up in the northeast, where my sister's best friend's family owned the corner shop, and when we used to go and visit her, her dad used to tell us, take what you want from the sweets in the shop, and it made me cry with the happy memories of that shop. But also because you know he's not going to have a good time in this book, and it's heart-wrenching knowing that he ain't going to have a good time. Page 200. He wouldn't actually mind that she'd been to see her dad. She knew that, really. It was just that he was concerned to make sure that she didn't give too much of herself, especially now she was working too. Gary was just looking out for her, wasn't he? That's what he always said. And that was what she was going to choose to believe. This is great representation of an abusive relationship. I'm not going to say too much into that, But this is Helen talking about her husband Gary, and really good representation there. Page 208. Keep your strength up, she continued, using a phrase she often repeated to my dad. I thought it was funny that it was men who were encouraged to be strong, when according to the papers it was women who were under threat. I served myself an extra portion of crumble when she wasn't looking. Yes, Miv, yes. Love this. Just from a child's point of view, before you are taught prejudice, before you've learned societal problems and just all of it, a true reason of why does he get extra portions? I'm growing and I should be strong because I've got to fight off the Ripper. Yes. Page 215. Don't the police care? What are they even doing? I had wondered the same myself. The only policemen I'd ever seen interviewed about the case were even older than my dad. The ones who weren't in uniform wore suits and spoke in posh voices, mainly to each other it seemed. It was like they were a million miles away from us, and even further away from the young women the Ripper was murdering. I wondered if the distance mattered, if it made a difference to how much they cared and whether they caught him. This quote just sums up the process the police went through trying to catch the Yorkshire Ripper. The quotes I've kind of chosen really sum up sections of this book in just a really precise way. Page 234. When we arrived at the house on that Sunday afternoon, there was a strong smell of burning. Arthur had attempted to make a victorious sandwich to welcome Jim, but had failed spectacularly. Seriously, my heart. Oh. So Arthur is Helen's dad, and his wife passed away. So he lives alone. But there is a man called Jim who can't go home because he's in a divorce, and he's from the northeast, so quite a drive, like a 2.5 hour drive to get down to Yorkshire. And so Arthur's gonna let him live with him, and he's tried to bake, but in those days men didn't cook, and it's just so wholesome. I love Arthur, and I just love this two men helping each other out, and an older elderly man learning to cook, and just it was just really beautiful to me. I thought that was a great show of friendship and support. It was just very nice. Page 240. Having borrowed Omar's coconut oil to keep his neatly side-swept hair in place, the smell of it, mixed with the cheap deodorant Ishtak had sprayed literally all over, now filled the shops with its sickly sweetness, and Omar had propped the door open for fear of suffocating his customers. So Omar is Mr. Bashir, who owns the corner shop, and his son has dressed up, and I'm sure we can all remember, as young teenagers, maybe overdoing it a little bit on the spray. You know, I mean, teenage boy smell is either sweat or a lot of deodorant, and there's no in between, it seems, so it just made me laugh. I have another quote, and I honestly can't remember what page this is from, so do forgive me. I didn't fight against Hitler to see my own countrymen turn into him. Yes! This is Mike and Mike's dad, and so Mike was Miv's teacher, and I just love this because it's true, and the problem is that a lot of people use the war to say why Brexit happened. They keep saying, you know, like, it's our country, we didn't fight for being part of this EU. This makes more sense to my head. I mean, politically, I voted to stay. So this just made so much sense to me. We didn't fight a racist to become racists. And sadly, there are so many groups of racists now. It's scary, and it's happening all over the world and all over Europe. But yeah, I don't want to be stuck on an island with them. And my final quote is page 325. Are you still going to get the bus home after nights? I heard the lady who answered the door ask. I'm going to carry on as normal, said another of the group. I'm not letting them win. Them, said Valerie. Aye, the voice carried on. Men. It should be bloody men who shouldn't be out after dark, not women. We're not the bloody murderers. I'm sorry, but yes, the whole Ripper thing just was such a huge example of victim blaming, and that still happens today. There was a murder not too long ago whilst I lived in Bristol of a young woman who got into a police car and was murdered by the police officer. And the police said, and they retracted it very quickly, I will say, but they did say, don't get into a police car to women. Because, women shouldn't be allowed to do anything in this world without fear of being killed. So the people who are paid literally by your taxes to protect you, you shouldn't trust them. And this quote just really highlighted that for me. Like, yes, Miv's friends, just yes. No matter who the victim is, victim blaming is not okay. It happens so often and it just needs to stop. Which, as I said, with the murder, they did retract that very quickly after they said it because there was outrage. There's been protests in Bristol, I think almost yearly since it happened. So with that, let's get into my overall review of the list of suspicious things. I will say as well, this has a lot of praise. We have Elizabeth Day. To read it is to feel a little better about life. Emma Healy, funny, poignant and drawn with real compassion. So Elizabeth Day's quote, I don't agree, it didn't make my life better, it made me annoyed, but at least it's improving slightly. On the back, Rob Rinder, profoundly original and dazzlingly written, a beautiful mystery with heart. Sophie Hannah, absolutely loved it. It was so engrossing, utterly heartbreaking, made me cry, but also redemptive and hopeful at the same time. Jenny Jackson, what could be more magical than a writer who can flip from hilarity to darkness and back on the same page, and as authentic as it is unforgettable. Kate Hamer, a book full of heart that drops you vividly into a time and place. Superb. Georgina Moore, I am so sad it has ended because it is a gorgeous triumph, a beautifully crafted, moving, funny, has all the feels. Chloe Timms, the characters completely burrowed into my heart. And Awais Khan, brimming with what it means to be human. This is a book to be savoured and cherished. It is a very, very beautifully and well written book. It is a wholesome story told from the point of view of two children, and it made me cry twice. So it is a very good book. At the end of this book, they start something that I'm not going to tell you too much what it is, but it made me cry because it is really wholesome. Lots of terrible things happen in this book, but it is so wholesome how the community react in the end. I feel ultimately, although it is during the time of Yorkshire Ripper, this book is about loss and grief and the various ways that people deal with it, the various ways that it changes and shapes you, and it's just told from so many different points that you can see why and how people think and act the way they do, and why sometimes it's hard to get out of situations that you've been born into and that you've had no control over, and that now, you have to live with those consequences. And it is, quite an emotional book. It also touches on racism, sexism, and the ultimate unfairness of the system. With that, let's go into my book review template that I made in a vlog. If you haven't seen that vlog, that link is above me now. But first, enjoyment. I gave it 8 out of 10. I did enjoy reading it. I read it within a week. It was a very fast read for me. Writing style, I gave it an 8. There were certain things I wasn't quite so sure, but it was good. Plot, I gave it an 8. In the book club, a lot of people said it didn't have a plot, and that's what they did struggle with that. It was a very split book club for this book. I still gave it an 8 because it did move forward, so I felt there was a rough plot there, but it's not plot heavy. It's very, very character driven. World building 8, you knew you in the 70s. Characterization 8. Representation, I gave it an 8. We do have representation of various different people. And originality 7, so that gives me 55 out of 70, which is a 4-star read. Also, the raven on the front cover, although it doesn't make sense for the title, little Easter egg there. See if you can see why there's a raven on the cover. I'm not going to say it because it's more fun if you work it out. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this book review. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to see as soon as I upload, click the little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!